Nicole. Welcome back to another design with video. Today we are going to make some fun fringed flowers. I'm going to start off with some double-sided tape here, of course a pair of fringe scissors, normal scissors as well. I have some dies from Spellbinders, some floral die that I have used out of these cardstock and pattern paper scraps. I also have some 1x6 and 1x12 strips of pattern paper. This is great for your scraps, so if you're looking for a new use for that, this project will be great for that. So I'm going to start off, there's two ways to do this first flower. The first way you can do is add a row of double-sided tape along the seam, but I actually just stitched down the open edge of my cardstock strip, and then I take my fringe scissors and I just fringe along the edge. So what you want to do is just bend that 1-inch strip in half, and I stitched along that edge and then fringed on the other side. So I'm going to do it again because that was pretty fast, and this time I'll use double-sided tape. I'm just going to add double-sided tape to the one edge, fold the other edge over, and then you'll want to fringe along your folded edge. So you don't have to sew, but you can use double-sided tape for sure, and you want to go ahead and fringe your edge. The important thing to note is you don't want to fringe all the way through to the other side of the paper, so you just want to make sure you're doing just enough just to cut that one side of the edge. So I have already cut some pattern paper using my Spellbinder die. So I'm just going to punch some holes here with my Crop-A-Dile. You could even just fold your paper up a little bit and just crop. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle, just enough to get your fringe center in. So what you want to do now is you want to add more double-sided tape along that plain edge, and that is going to go on both sides of that strip. So you want to run a little bit on one side and a little bit on the other, and just trim off the excess and peel off the backing from both sides. It gets a little bit sticky, but what you want to do then is just start at one edge and roll it over onto itself. Just keep on going. Try to keep that one edge, the flat edge, even until you have a nice center. I had a little bit more paper there than I wanted, and then when you get to the end, you just simply use your thumbs and push down to split out your paper. I'm going to make my hole a little bit larger. I'm going to use my Crop-A-Dile for that. Again, this doesn't have to be a perfect circle, so it's going to be well hidden. You want to poke your fringed insert into the middle there of your die. Slide it up as much as you want. You can do the same thing by, I'm going to use a circle punch this time to get a bigger hole, and then just stack them all together, and you get a really nice fringed center of the flower. So I'm going to do the same thing again. This time I have pattern paper, and I haven't folded over the inside of that strip this time. This time I just fringed along the edge of a skinnier strip of pattern paper. I'm going to go ahead though and roll it. So this time it hasn't been folded over. It's just a simple fringed again along the edge, and I'll show you with the felt. You'll be able to notice a little bit differently what the difference is between folding it over and leaving it just normal fringed. But again, you can see once you kind of fluff that up and layer that together, you get a really pretty flower. So I'm going to create this flower now here. It's actually two different flowers together in one. Again, I'm going to do that same thing we did in the first flower step, where I go ahead and fringe along the edge. And then I'm going to fringe along the edge of the long 12-inch strip of pattern paper. And I'm not going to fold anything over this time. This is going to create a bit of a bigger flower, and you will see that will be the outside of our flower here. For the center, I did that same thing where I had folded it over and stitched. That's going to create the inside of our flower. So again, more double-sided tape. You can see I almost cut through the edge of that one there, but adding that double-sided tape will create a little more sturdiness. So if you kind of get really close to that edge, as long as you add your double-sided tape, you'll probably be safe. Making sure that that double-sided tape is on the same side. You don't want to do it on the opposite, because then you'll lose your pretty fringed edge. While I have my tape out, I'm going to do the same thing along the uncut edge of this 12-inch strip of paper. Again, you're going to use double-sided tape on both sides of that strip. And then you want to reveal the glue, so you want to peel the backing off of both pieces of that paper. And this is truly probably the trickiest part of making these flowers, is peeling off the backing of the double-sided tape. Once you get that first one done, you want to roll it up tight. And I wouldn't recommend you take the glue off just yet of that long strip, because what we're going to do is we're going to take this smaller one now that we've made, and we're actually going to roll that into this one here that we've fringed the longer strip. And what that's going to do is that's going to create the internal bud of your flower along the outside where you kind of have your fringed petals. So what you have to remember for this is whatever pattern you want to show for your flower is going to be what you roll your flower inside on. So you can see I'm rolling it over on itself, just putting that little flower inside the center. So in the middle we'll have a center of the bloom and then a larger fringed bloom around the outside. This one is really, really cool. So you can see to get your outer petals, you just push down pretty good, and there you go. You can see on the right side there, I gave my flower a bit of a haircut. It was a little bit smaller, and all I did was take my scissors and trimmed off around the outer edge. So let's do the exact same thing with felt and see what happens. So I have these spellbinder dies also cut with felt here, and this is from Tailored Expressions, and I'm just folding those in half and cutting the centers out just so I have some room to put my inner parts later. And you're going to see here, again, you can add double-sided tape and fold it over. I've stitched mine again, and again, I'm going to go ahead like we did with the paper and just fringe that other side that wasn't stitched. Same thing with the yellow. This time, I'll use the double-sided tape just for fun. Double-sided tape holds it well too, so don't feel like you have to sew just because it's almost like a fabric. Don't feel that that's completely necessary. Okay, so the difference here is that because we've folded this loop over and stitched it up or used tape to stitch it up, you almost get like little loops. So when you roll this back over onto itself, you're going to get a center that's a little more looped. It's hard to see that with the paper, but you'll see this here with the unfolded yellow, that you get more of a fringed edge. If you feel like your fringe is just a little too long, you can always trim it down like I did there. The felt cuts really, really nicely. And so now I'm just going to peel off my double-sided backing and roll it on itself. And you see I'm going to get a really kind of like spiky fringed center for my flower. This would be pretty on its own. It doesn't need to go inside a die like this here. But these look really cool for the center of some flowers. So again, just tuck that right into the felt. The felt is pretty forgiving actually. It allows you to stretch that right in through the center. So how fun is that? I'm going to trim it down just a little bit more. I feel like it's a little bit too long still. And because you don't want the center to be completely perfect, you don't need to like take the whole thing apart to fix it. So now I'm going to roll up that looped one, and you'll see a little bit of a difference between the two. So I'm going to roll it over itself. And instead of it being really spiky almost at the end, you get these really pretty loops. You get a bit of a different look even though you've done the exact same thing with just that little extra step of folding it over. And again, I'm just using my crocodile to cut a hole. My paper punch didn't work quite as well with that, but the crocodile is a great tool to use just to get that together. So there's two felt flowers, perfectly like that. And so there's the exact same flowers we did in paper as we did in felt. So let's do one last one here, similar to what we did with the large one. And I'm going to use the yellow for the outside and the double-sided adhesive for this one. It's going to go along the one edge and along the same edge on the back. And you can see I've already stitched up my white one here. I'm just going to take my scissors and fringe it, but first I think I'm going to run my double-sided tape along that stitched edge just so that I don't cut anything through. It's actually a pretty good way to ensure that you're not going to cut all the way through, is if you get that tape on there before you cut, you can actually feel the tape as you're doing your trimming, so it kind of is a bit of a fail-safe so that you don't wreck your felt flower. Alright, so let's go ahead and just peel off the backing. Again, this is probably the trickiest thing. I have a paper piercer I keep handy at my craft table, so that is really helpful to kind of get that backing off. If you have trouble, you just have to be patient. Sometimes you got to go to the other edge and you can just get it off a little easier. Felt does make it a little tricky only because it really wants to stick to it, but with persistence it will pay off. So just get in there with your paper piercer, or if you have a weeding tool or something else, or pin or something in your stash sharp, you can eventually get it off like I did. So finally I got it off. This is the loopy one, so I'm going to loop it over on itself. And then again, I'm going to take this white center and I'm going to add that inside the yellow from the felt, and I'm going to just run that around, and that's going to create a nice white center to the outer yellow flower that I'm going to have here for a project. So super fun. Look how pretty that is. Same idea, just different mediums, the felt and the paper. You can make this a million times. So here's some cards I made using a combination actually of the felt and the paper flowers. They're super, super fun. And actually, here's a layout from the spring issue of Scrapbooking Cards Today where I used the felt flowers. I love how these look. I'm kind of addicted to how to make these. I hope you'll give them a try, and we will see you again soon for another Designed with video.